Hello, everyone, and welcome to Body Bags. I'm your reviewer, Lonnie from Horror Heaven77. Wait, hey, wait a minute, okay? Wait. Okay, don't turn off the video just yet. All right, let me explain. All right, you can already tell by the title of the video. The movie that I'm reviewing today is 1971's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Okay, now hold on. I know what you're saying. I know what you're thinking. Okay, it's like, dude, what the hell is wrong with you? Okay, this is Body Bags. This is a horror channel. What the hell are you doing reviewing Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? Okay, I thought it was interesting, and the reason why I ended up deciding that I wanted to review this movie of all movies is okay. I remember last month when we announced that we were going to do the week of horror films from 1971. And I remember when I was doing a Google search, looking at what movies had come out, horror films had come out in 1971. And one thing that surprised me was that this movie was actually on the list. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Don't believe me? I'm not even joking. Get on there, Google 1971 horror films. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is actually on the list. And it got me thinking, okay, because this is a movie that even though when it was first released, it was meant to be, and over time it's become like the ultimate, the ultimate family film, the ultimate children's fantasy, things like this. But one thing I thought was actually kind of interesting, and one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and go for it, is this is a movie that ended up over the years gaining a reputation as a horror film. And I thought it was also really interesting too, was that years back around Halloween time, when Bravo did their 100 scariest movie moments of all time, that the boat ride scene from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was actually on the list of the scariest movie moments of all time. Okay. And it just, to me, I just thought it was interesting. I thought that would just be an interesting idea how to talk about how a movie that came out that is, you know, like I said, it's basically like the perfect family film, and it's like one of the biggest children's films of all time. And yet, this movie over the decades has ended up gaining a reputation as a horror film, and that's what I wanted to talk. That's why I wanted to talk about it. And this movie, there are very dark elements in the movie, and I don't think I really need to tell you, because I'm pretty sure, anybody who's watching this video, chances are you've already seen the movie, so you know what I'm talking about. So what I want to do is I want to talk about some of the horror aspects of this movie. I'm probably going to make some comparisons to the Tim Burton remake, and also too, I was actually planning to do this movie last month, but I figured since almost at the first of this month, the movie would be coming out on 4K. And so I figured I could go ahead and just, also give you a quick review of the 4K. And, if you ever intend to get into 4K, if that's something you maybe want to consider doing at some point, would this, would this movie, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, would it be worth your money to get it in 4K? Would it be worth the upgrade? Okay. And for years, I've had actually this has been my Willy Wonka, the Blu-ray, DVD, and everything, and so yeah. But I did recently go ahead and pick up the 4K so I could review it for the channel. Okay, I don't think I really have to get too into what the movie is about. I think pretty much everybody, I think just about everybody's seen it. I think you know, if somebody says they haven't seen, I mean, unless they're maybe like 3 or 4 years old, if somebody said they haven't seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, I think you'd be right in asking them, have you been living in a cave or under a rock your entire life? How is it you've never seen Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? So I think we all know the storyline. Okay, the story revolves around a little boy named Charlie Bucket, who lives with his mother, and and we're gonna get into some things too. Um, concerning like the book and the Tim Burton remake versus the original film. So you got Charlie Bucket. He's a little boy. He lives in a poor family. In this version, his mother is single, in both the book and the Tim Burton film, Charlie Bucket's father does figure into the story. And forgive me, it's been a long time since I read the book, but if I remember reading the book, actually, in the book, I think it was his father who takes him to the chocolate factory instead of Grandpa Joe. Now, like I said, I could be wrong about that. I think, like I said, it's been a long time. So anyway, but in this version, Charlie, he's with his single mother, and this woman, I feel like when you watch the movie, his mother, in my opinion, this woman deserves like a national day made in her honor. Okay, because her in I, yeah, in the story, her father is Grandpa Joe. Now, Grandpa Joe, as we all know, if you follow social media and stuff, Grandpa Joe is going on to become one of the most horrible, despicable characters in all of movie history. You think of like some of the worst characters in movies. You might be thinking like Darth Vader from Star Wars, Saruman from Lord of the Rings, or Voldemort from Harry Potter, or something like that. No, none of them compare. Okay, the absolute worst character in movie history. I think officially the title now goes to Grandpa Joe from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And of course, the reason why is because um, you have Charlie's mother, who she's breaking her back, working all these hours in the laundry, trying to support the family and trying to and taking care of them. And Charlie, not only does he go to school, but he does a paper route when he gets out of school. And Grandpa Joe and the other grandparents, especially Grandpa Joe, like they've been bedridden for years, and he's in there making he's making complaints as to why he won't get his ass out of bed and help his family, even though they're struggling and they're eating nothing but cabbage soup. Even at one point, she's like, I've never seen you set foot out of that bed in 20 years. Like, well, maybe if the floor wasn't so cold. It's like, oh, come on, man. Seriously? So, yeah, I think we could kind of give the worst character award of all time probably to Grandpa Joe. But so anyway, so of course we know the story that Willy Wonka, he runs a chocolate factory and everything else, and he sends out five golden tickets, and children from all over the world, five kids end up winning the golden tickets. Obviously, Charlie does eventually win one. He's the last kid to win one, but you have Augustus Gloop, you have Veruca Salt, you have Violet Beauregard, and you have Mike TV. One thing I thought was kind of interesting is you notice how like most of the characters in here are named after objects. Charlie Bucket, Veruca Salt, you know, Augustus Gloop, Mike TV. It's weird how a lot of the characters in the story are named after objects, things. But anyway, so they have the whole there's the whole song and dance of will Charlie get one? Will he not get the ticket and everything? Ultimately, he finally does get the ticket, and once he wins, then he and Grandpa Joe, who finally gets his ass out of bed. He won't get his ass out of bed to help his struggling daughter. But anyway, going back to what I was saying though, it's like this woman deserves a national day in her honor, because here's a woman who she's a single mother trying to raise a son. Okay, she breaks her back working in a laundry, trying to support a family, trying to run a household. And not only does this woman take care of her bedridden parents, but she also takes care of her bedridden in-laws. Who does this? How many women do you know are not only going to take care of their invalid parents, but also going to take care of their invalid in-laws? Not very many women are going to do that, okay? So like I said, this woman deserves a Purple Heart, in my opinion. But anyway, but obviously, just for whatever reason, I don't really even know why they deleted Charlie's father from the original film when he was in the Tim Burton remake and he was in the book. I have no idea why they did that. So, but anyway, Charlie does win the golden ticket, and he decides he wants to take his Grandpa Joe. And so they go, and you got the Willy Wonka who runs the factory. In the original is Gene Wilder, who I think hands down, come on, let's face it. Okay, Gene Wilder is Willy Wonka. Was, is, always will be. Now, I'm pretty sure you guys probably already thought what I was going to say. Now, you guys know me if you watch my reviews and stuff like that. You guys know I'm a Johnny Depp fan. I've always liked Johnny Depp. I've always loved his movies and things like this. So I imagine a lot of you were probably going to think I was going to come up and say that, well, yeah, Gene Wilder's okay, but I prefer Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp is, the real Willy Wonka. No, no. I don't hate Johnny Depp's performance, and I understand why they kind of went in a little bit of a different direction with it. But see, here's the thing: in the book, Willy Wonka, and it'll say, you watch the bonus features, the interviews and stuff like that. It says that in the book that Willy Wonka was written to be more of like a really kind of creepy, weird, eccentric kind of a character, and he was kind of menacing, and there was something, uh, just something kind of really frightening. He was kind of intimidating and things like this. And so when they did the original movie and they hired Gene Wilder, he decided, like, he felt that the character from the book was a little too dark, and decided to kind of lighten up the character. So what he did was, he introduced, like in the very beginning when Willy Wonka comes out and he's got the cane and he's limping and stuff, and then the cane sticks in the ground, and he does the flip and everything. He said, like, I kind of want it to be like, you never know what he's going to do next. You never know what he's going to say next. But also, one of the big things was that Willy Wonka really added a funny sense of humor to him. I mean, essentially, he turns Willy Wonka into kind of a lovable smartass. But also, too, he's very educated. He's very, he speaks different languages in the movie. Like, he's talking, he speaks in French at one point, he speaks in German at one point, and everything else. And, just Gene Wilder just really took it and just really expanded on the character and made him one of the most interesting movie characters of all time. Now, I know a lot of people probably absolutely hated what Johnny Depp did with Willy Wonka, but I don't, because when you watch, like, basically the whole point of Tim Burton's movie was that he wanted to go and make a more faithful adaptation of the book. And I mean, similar kind of like what John Carpenter did when he remade The Thing. He realized how far away the original movie, The Thing from Another World, was from the short story. And so when he decided to remake The Thing, he felt that the best thing to do was to, go back to the Who Goes There story and do a more faithful adaptation of that. So that's what Tim Burton tried to do. Now you can argue, whether Burton succeeded or failed, but but also too, like when you watch Johnny Depp's performance, you could clearly tell that Depp was kind of trying to do Willy Wonka a little bit more as he was written in the book. He is, there are moments where he just looks at somebody, he looks like a psychopath, and just I mean, he's got some funny moments too, but he doesn't have the charm, and he doesn't have the just the wit and everything else that Gene Wilder put into it. And but at least for me, I understand what Johnny Depp was trying to do. He was trying to do Willy Wonka more as written in the book. So for me personally, I don't hate Johnny Depp's version. I actually do enjoy the Tim Burton film, as somebody who's read the book and everything. And also too, it's like one thing that is a real huge difference is the music, and we'll get into that in just a minute. But yeah, so I don't hate Johnny Depp's version, but I think, I'm on the same boat. Well, I don't think I know it. I'm on the same boat with everybody else. Willy Wonka is always going to be Gene Wilder. Okay, nobody's ever going to. He's nailed that shut behind him. Nobody's ever going to take that away from him, no matter what you do. Gene Wilder was, is, and always will be Willy Wonka. But so Willy Wonka takes the kids into his chocolate factory, and then it turns into this kind of weird world, and you could start to see why a lot of people would start to view this as a horror movie. And it definitely does kind of follow a horror film kind of storyline, I guess, for lack of a better word. Like at the very beginning of the movie, when Charlie is introduced, he does his paper route, and then he's heading home, and it's getting dark. And so, he's standing outside the gate of Wonka's factory, and he's looking, in the smokestack, and the letters light up. Then this creepy old man suddenly appears behind him, and he starts, quoting this, line from a poem or something, I guess. Then he's like, nobody ever goes in, nobody ever comes out. And he's a tinker. He's got like he's got like a car he's pushing. It's got like knives and cleavers and things like that. It's like, yeah, that definitely looks kind of horror movie-ish. It definitely would make you think of like Crazy Ralph or something from Friday the 13th. The old creepy guy who's like, you're doomed, you're all doomed, that kind of a thing. And then once they get into the chocolate factory, I mean, there's like, yeah, there are some creepy things. It's like when they go to put their coats and their hats up, and their literal hands sticking out of the wall, and like when they go to put their hat or something, the hats grab it, and so it's like, yeah, there's definitely some horror movie imagery in there. And then also too, you got the kids. It really almost has almost like oh god, I hate to say this, but it really does. It almost has kind of like a slasher movie storyline to it when you think about it, because you have the five kids, and then basically, they each get taken out in a way, and it whittles it down to the final kid, who obviously we already all know is Charlie. But yeah, and then horrible things start happening to the kids. And one thing I will say that was definitely a difference from the original to the remake. I think one thing that really does kind of add into the horror factor is that the kids in the original, now while they were brats and while they were annoying and things like this, they were not really horrible kids. Now the kids in the Tim Burton version, these kids are despicable. These are just awful kids, just horrid, wretched kids. And you're waiting. I mean, like when you watch the Tim Burton version, you're waiting for something bad to happen to these kids. You want something bad to happen to these kids. You can't wait for, anyway, but like in the original movie, I think it adds kind of more to the horror factor in the fact that they're now, while these kids are brats and everything, you still feel a sympathy for these kids because, like when something bad is happening to one of them, the other kids are genuinely horrified and the other kids are genuinely scared, and they genuinely care about each other's well-being. Like when Augustus falls into the chocolate river, he's being sucked up, you can hear Veruca screaming, how long is he going to stay down, daddy? And then, or like when Violet's turning into the blueberry, and stuff. And also too, it's like these things are going to be like, it's almost like these kids are going to be killed, you know, like Augustus when he falls into the chocolate river, he's pulled up the pipe, and they're talking about he's going to be, talking about they need to look sharp because he's going to be poured into a boiler and he's going to be boiled into fudge. So there's that. Then like when, like each one of these kids have some really horrible consequences coming their way. And like when Violet, when she chews the bubble gum, she starts ballooning up, and she turns into, she's turning into a blueberry. And so Wonka's like, we need to hurry up and we got to get the juice out of her. That's not air in her, that's juice. She's filling up like a blueberry. We got to get that juice out of her, or otherwise she's going to explode. You know. So it's like, oh my god, she keeps going and going. She's just going to explode in guts and everything everywhere. Then we get to the third. It was the third was Veruca, who in the that's definitely a horror movie scene in the Tim Burton version is what happens to Veruca, because obviously back in 1971 they couldn't do the squirrels that sort the nuts and everything, or deshell the nuts. That I believe that was in the book, yeah, and that but obviously they couldn't do that back in 71, so they did the geese laying the golden eggs thing. But it's like testing the eggs and everything, and then seeing like if it's a good egg, it's shined up and shipped out, but if it's a bad egg, it goes down basically to an incinerator. And so Veruca, she sings her whole song about I want it now, I want it now, I want everything, I want it now, and then she stands up and she falls down. Their father jumps in after her, and so like right before the father jumps in after her, he asks Willy Wonka, like, where's that go? It's like to the incinerator. It's all like, she's going to be sizzled like a sausage. No, she could be stuck. And so he goes in after her. And so they're asking Mr. Wonka, are they really going to be burned in the incinerator? It's like, well, I think it's only lit every other day. So I think they stand a chance, so I mean, it's like, whoa, hey, and then Mike TV, he gets transported by television, and so he gets turned real tiny, and so they decide they're going to put him in a taffy stretching machine, and basically it's almost like they're going to put him in a rack, like a like a torture device almost, to stretch him out and everything else. But and one thing also too that I will definitely note, there was a difference between the original movie and the Tim Burton remake is um, at the end of the movie, you never really see the kids again. I mean, even though Willy Wonka, I think that's another thing too that definitely adds into the horror element of it is the fact that Willy Wonka, he never ever, he just says, "Don't worry about it. The kids will be all right. They're going to be fine," and all this kinds of. But we never see him again. We never hear anything else of him. So I think a lot of people over the years have kind of interpreted that the kids were actually murdered in the chocolate factory. Whereas in the Tim Burton version, you do see that the kids come out of the factory. They are altered, but ultimately they are still alive. You know, Violet's now blue, and everything else. And like Mike TV, he's stretched like 12 feet tall and all that kind of thing. But but yeah, I think that was another thing that definitely added to the horror element of the original movie was that you never really see what happens to the kids, and all you have is just Wonka's word saying, "Oh, they'll be fine. Don't worry about it." Another, and throughout the movie, there are definite, there are different scenes that do play into horror. I mean, especially when Grandpa Joe, once again being the worst character in movie history, he tells Charlie, let's take a swallow of the fizzy lifting drinks, and then they do, and they start floating up towards the ceiling fan, and they're seconds. I mean, just like 1 or 2 seconds away from being, sliced into ribbons and just guts and blood everywhere. But the only thing that saved them is that they realize you got to start burping. Once they start burping, they can come down. And also, too, there's like this thing of like these spikes, going up there and everything. I remember watching. I was like, you guys might want to really be careful. You could fall and get impaled on those. But so that's definitely, it's a moment. And I think that's another reason why people start to view this as a horror film, because it starts off as kind of a fun, kind of whimsical, almost fantasy element, like, hey, who wouldn't want to be flying? But then it shows you the immediate consequence of what's going to happen. These two, they're going to get drawn up into this fan, and they're going to be, chopped up into bits. So yeah, like when you start looking at it and you see that the movie almost does have like a slasher movie storyline to it, because like I said, you have to cut down and eliminate the kids to who's going to be the winner, and ultimately Charlie does. And these kids do end up meeting a pretty horrible fate, for the most part. Even if they end up alive, still what happens to them is pretty horrible and frightening. So, but also too, yeah, talking about, like I said, I do overall enjoy the Tim Burton version. I do prefer this one a lot more, as I think most people would. But I don't hate the Tim Burton version. I do appreciate that it does try to be closer to the book. It does try to, really have, try to be a more faithful adaptation. And they did change some things to try to make it a little more fun and lighthearted and everything else. But one thing I also noticed too, I think is actually kind of unsettling, is when, like in the remake, when something bad is getting ready to happen to one of the kids, like Violet's going to turn into a blueberry, or Augustus falls into the chocolate river, he's being sucked up the pipe or whatever else. I know as Danny Elfman, puts in deliberate horror movie music stings in there. You can definitely hear it. And it really does, especially like the Veruca scene where the squirrels are basically trapping her and they're sliding her to the hole, and they're going to drop her into the furnace and everything. I mean, you definitely hear there is very much horror movie music in there. And also too, even though most people would say it was unnecessary, but in the original movie, or in the remake, they decide we needed to go into Willy Wonka's backstory because whatever, But also too, it's very Tim Burton. It's very dark. It has it definitely has the trademark scenery and everything that you're used to with Tim Burton, and of course, Willy Wonka's dad's got to be played by Christopher Lee of all people. So, so yeah, there's definitely that. So the movie definitely does try to go for a kid's horror movie, almost Goosebumps kind of vibe to it. Um, but one thing, like a little while ago, I mentioned the music. Okay, overall, I mean, we got to say the music in the original wins hands down, and it kind of makes you understand. Like, see, what ended up happening was in the remake, what they did was they took lyrics that the Oompa Loompas sing from the book, and basically Danny Elfman took the lyrics that they sing and put them to music, and obviously it didn't work because like if you think about it, you think of both movies, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to sit there and remember like a lot of the music from the remake, whereas the original movie you remember all of the music. So they did a good job getting Anthony Newley and I forget who else to does it say? Yeah, Leslie Bracuse. I'm sorry if I botched that name. I probably did, but it makes total sense. Why they did that, and it's like because I mean you could remember pretty much every bit of music in this movie. You remember the Candyman can, you can remember Pure Imagination, you can remember Cheer Up Charlie. Even if Cheer Up Charlie's not your favorite song, you still remember it. Whereas like a lot of the music in the remake, you kind of don't really remember too much. But I think also too, it kind of adds a little bit more to the horror element of the original movie in the sense that when something bad is happening to one of the kids, you notice until the Oompa Loompas come up, and that's another thing. Everybody remembers the Oompa Loompa song. Oompa Loompa Doompa Dee Doo. Like everybody remembers that. Once you hear it, it's stuck in your head forever. But I think until the Oompa Loompas come along and sing their song, also too, one thing I think it makes the movie a bit unsettling is the fact that when something bad is happening to one of the kids, like Mike TV's being transported by television or Violet's being turned into a blueberry or whatever else, there's no music, and I think it kind of makes it a little bit more unsettling. Whereas, like I said in the Tim Burton version, yeah, you definitely Danny Elfman is definitely putting horror movie stings in those scenes. So I think that kind of makes it a little bit more unsettling, almost like the way how unsettling the original I Spit on Your Grave was, because there was no music score during the rape scenes and the murder. And the movie really has no music score at all. So, a lot of people think it has almost kind of a documentary, almost kind of a feel to it, because there's no music cutting in to try to, to try to play with your emotions as to what would work. And so, yeah, so I think that's another thing that adds to the horror element of the original movie. But this movie, yeah, when you start to look at it from the point of view of a horror movie fan, you could definitely see that this movie is it definitely is almost like a kid's slasher movie almost. And Willy Wonka, in a sense, is almost like, he's almost like a Freddy Krueger in a sense. Because, he makes jokes, he sometimes says very cryptic things. Like at one point, he tells Augustus, don't go get excited, don't lose your head. We don't want anybody to lose that. Not yet, things like that. But another thing this movie definitely wins at too is the whole Oompa Loompa thing. Because, okay, now I had no problems with Tim Burton putting Deep Roy as a Oompa Loompa in the original movie, but to sit there and have him play every Oompa Loompa, that was kind of stupid. I mean, you have so many short actors out there who really, I mean, look like Warwick Davis. He's been in just about every kind of fantasy almost that you could think of. He's been in Harry Potter. He's been in Star Wars. He was in Willow. He's been in The Leprechaun, things like that. I'm pretty sure that probably Warwick Davis would have really liked to have added Oompa Loompa to his resume, don't you think? What about Phil Fondacaro? What about Tony Cox? What about Peter Dinklage? So on and so on. I don't remember if this was before or after he passed away, but what about Vern Troyer? You think maybe Vern Troyer, Mini-Me, you think maybe he might have liked to have played an Oompa Loompa? Probably, so they could say it. So, I had no problem with putting Deep Roy as one of them, but I thought that was just a really horrible mistake, was to put him as all of them. That was really a bad move. But anyway, I mean, obviously, that was, I'm sorry this video has been so long, but that's kind of really why. It's like I was trying to, explain why it would make sense that this movie over the years has gained a reputation as a horror film. And like I said, when you start looking at the movie as a horror movie fan, the movie almost really does almost have like a slasher movie kind of storyline to it. It has kind of the bare bones of a slasher slasher movie storyline to it, I think. So, but obviously, it's of course it's subjective. I mean, a lot of people could say, well, yeah, I can kind of see what you're talking about, and Yeah, it does have a bit of a horror movie vibe to it and stuff. But I imagine for most people, they're still going to be like, dude, you're really kind of grasping at straws there. And this movie, really, what it is, it's just one of the biggest, most well loved, well made family movies of all time. And so watch and judge for yourself. But for me personally, yeah, I can. But I just thought it was interesting how a movie that started off as like the biggest children's film of all time and one of the biggest family films, one of the biggest children's fantasies, ultimately over the years has gained a reputation as a horror film. And like especially with the scene where they're going through, the boat through the tunnel and everything, they're seeing like chickens being decapitated and things like that, and oh my god, what was it, like a snake or something was slithering across the guy's face and things like that. Giant bugs, giant lizards, things like that. So yeah, you could definitely see why over the years it would gain a reputation as a horror film. Okay, so we're just about done here. So the only thing I've got left now to do is to review the 4K Blu-ray. Now, would I recommend this? Okay, number one, if you're a fan of this movie, and here's the thing: like if you want to get into 4K, and if you already are, and this movie is one of your all-time favorites, is it worth the upgrade? In my opinion, definitely. Yeah. If you've seen any other videos where people have reviewed the Blu-ray and stuff, believe the hype. I know how hard it is because I've seen, videos where somebody is reviewing like a 4K and stuff, and oh my god, this is so great, this is magnificent, this movie has never looked so good, this is the best this movie's ever looked, and then I buy the 4K and then I play it and it's like, this really doesn't look that good. Okay, I'm not impressed with the way this movie looks at all. But this is one of those instances where, yeah. Also, too, I would definitely say if you're going to get a 4K TV, with the capabilities and get you a player or a gaming system, whatever, this one is definitely, definitely worth the pickup because this, excuse me, this will show you the benefits of what 4K can do. It shows you the potential of it. So, yeah, like Grace watched it with me, and the part where the colors are so much more vivid, so much more sharp. Like Grace, she watched it with me, and the part where Violet turns into a blueberry, she's like, "Oh my god, that is so blue!" And she's seen the movie a number of times herself. And then Willy Wonka's coat, like his coat's always been kind of a faded purple and everything else. And the 4K really does bring out the purple. You know, it really does, amp up the colors and makes it more bright and vivid. Especially, you'll definitely notice the difference when they go into the, to the candy room, where everything's all made of candy and everything's bright color. You'll definitely notice. There are definitely parts of the movie you'll notice elsewhere, but oh yeah, you're definitely going to notice the difference. So I would definitely say, if you already have 4K and you're on the fence about buying this, if you want it, if you love the movie, get it, because this really is probably the best this movie's ever looked. So I would definitely say pick it up. And if you're thinking about getting into 4K and you want to get a movie on 4K that really shows you the benefits and the potential of what 4K can do, then this is definitely a good one to start with. So anyway, so that's it. I'm sorry this video was so long, but I'm sorry, I just felt like I had a lot of points I needed to make. Because, this was a stretch, sitting here talking about how this family movie is actually, how this family movie gained a reputation as a horror film. And personally, I can see it. I still, when I watch the movie, I still think of it as more of like a fantasy and it's like it would still play more like a family film and stuff. But when you kind of change your mindset and you look at it from the perspective of a horror movie fan, you could start to see elements of horror films in it. And there are some, moments that do come pretty close to being, really grisly. And then when you think of the horrible things happening to the kids and everything else, yeah, you could definitely start to see why this movie over the years has gained a horror reputation. But anyway, so that's it. So, you can remove your aluminum foil hat now. I'm done with my conspiracy theories. So if anybody took the time to watch this, I thank you for doing it, especially a video this damn long. Again, I'm sorry about the length. But if anybody took the time to watch all this, I thank you for doing it, and I appreciate you for doing it. I honestly hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please leave a like. If you haven't already, go and subscribe to the Body Bags channel. We have a different reviewer, one for every day of the week. I'm the Friday reviewer. Different guys, everybody's all doing great stuff. And again, so thank you again, and thank you for going on the ride with me on this. And yeah, if you're into 4K or you want to get into 4K, definitely Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory is a good start. So everybody take care, have a good night, and I'll see you later.